What's up, guys? How you doing today? Am I teaching you guys how to rattle today? No, I'm not. But it was fun to rattle antlers, especially sheds, so that's why I did it. But I will be using these in an example here, and so you might be asking, what am I teaching you today? Today I'm going to teach you how to age bucks in the field. And so with that, let's get right into it. I want to talk about the biggest myth that I think some hunters struggle with when they're talking about aging deer. So the problem with aging deer based on their antlers is that some hunters may think that an 8-point must always be older than a 6-point, or a 10-point must always be older than an 8-point. But that's just simply not the truth. And if I'm going to be really frank with you guys, sometimes antlers have nothing to do with the age of a deer, but they have more to do with the nutrition that a deer is getting, what kind of area that you guys are hunting in, and so I want to kind of break that down a little bit. Me and my dad took a trip down to southern Ohio. A landowner that we knew through our church was very kind to let us come down there and just scout the area in the spring a couple summers back. And we ended up finding these 3 sheds. So they're all from the same area. And my knowledge of southern Ohio is that they grow some pretty big deer. And so I want to start with the biggest shed here. As you can see, this shed is super thick. I mean, you're talking about index to, you know, the first knuckle of my thumb. And then on the inside, I can't even grab all the way around. In that inside, I don't know, looks kind of like a paddle, but I don't know. Anyway, so my point is here, this is a big deer. This is an old, mature deer, and you can tell that because it's got mass. It's got, you know, it's got a thick base. It's got this thick handle. Tines are nice, and just a great looking buck. So this is probably the most mature deer out of the sheds that we found in southern Ohio, and you can just tell that by the mass. Now let's go into this one. This is another 8-point, but as you can see, this mass is just, it's not as big, and so this must be probably a younger deer. I'm thinking maybe 3.5 years old, maybe 2.5 years old, while this deer is probably 4.5 or above. You can tell also the tines just aren't super long, the mass isn't there, but still a good looking buck, just maybe not the most mature buck, and maybe not the oldest buck in the herd, but still an 8-point. So that's why we don't want to think of points equal age. Now coming to the last shed that we found is this little guy, and as you can see, almost no mass there. It looks like a Michigan buck, to be honest, where I hunt, and we'll get into that in a second with the mount over there. But as you see, still an 8-point, but there's almost no mass. The tines are super small. I mean, not much on them. This might be a 1.5 years to a yearling buck that is just not as old, not as mature, but still has room to grow and still has room to gain mass. And so that is what I want you guys to take away from these examples from the sheds that we found in southern Ohio, is that if you're going to try to age a deer, a buck, based on antlers and antlers alone, look more for mass and more for tine length than you are going to look for number of points, because the number of points just doesn't always mean that it's an older buck. Alright, my next example, I want to use this European mount to kind of show you guys the teeth of a buck. I'm going to set this down and hopefully be able to zoom in and kind of point you guys through some stuff and show you guys why the teeth make a difference in the age of a buck. Alright, I know you guys can't see me, but I am back here. So I want to start with a yearling buck, you know, a brand new fawn. Its first year, it'll grow these front 3 molars, and that's it. So, you know, obviously we're not trying to shoot fawns or yearling bucks. We want to let them mature and grow. But that is the first sign of a yearling buck, is that they will have the first 3 molars, 1, 2, and then 3. Now, the next thing is a 1.5-year-old buck will most likely have 1 to 2 of the secondary molars, or they would call them primary molars sometimes. I don't know, it doesn't really matter to me. It's the main molars that they're going to do most of their chewing and chomping with, and so that is why we look for those in a 1.5-year-old buck. If you end up shooting a buck and you don't know how to age it, we'll look at the teeth, and you might find how old it is. Now, once a deer has reached the age of 2.5, it will have all sets of its molars. It'll have the 3 premolars and then the 3 primary molars, or you could call these primary molars and then secondary molars. I think premolars and then primary molars is a better term for it. The other thing I want to talk to you guys about when it comes to teeth and how that correlates to the age of a buck is the enamel on the teeth. So I can't show you an example of this with the European mount, and since I am just starting this YouTube channel and this brand, I have not taken any pictures of a deer's teeth with enamel worn down or really good enamel still on it. But the older a deer will get, the more the enamel will break down on their teeth, and the food that they eat, the corn, the beans, the acorns, all that kind of stuff that they eat, it wears down their enamel and eventually starts grinding away at their teeth. So if you shoot a really, you know, old buck, mature 8.5-year-old buck, you might find that their teeth are almost non-existent in the back just because of all the grinding and chewing that they've been doing throughout the years. And so that's how you can use teeth after you have made a kill shot, kind of get a general age of the buck or the doe that you just shot, because the teeth kind of method is standard among does and bucks. Alright, now the last thing I want to talk to you guys about, I don't have any examples for it, but I just want to kind of mention it, is you kind of have to know the area that you are hunting and what the average sized buck will have per that age class. Me and my dad have done countless debates whether this was a 3.5 or a 2.5-year-old buck. Now, we know that the deer on our farms in Michigan tend to not have as big of as much mass on them as, so to say, the bucks in Ohio. So we know that already, and so since we know that, we can make an average estimate that this might have been a 2.5, maybe 3.5-year-old buck. And it's kind of rare to see bucks in Michigan where we hunt outlive 4.5, 5.5, because there's just a lot of hunters around, and so we know that, and we have to understand that that's kind of the odds that we're playing, because we didn't really want to send in teeth and get an official age, because really we're just proud of that buck and we're proud of the kill shot that my dad placed on that buck. So I just want you to be aware of where you're hunting. You know, either know that, you know, a big buck, a big mature buck might have a lot of mass on it, and so that's what you might look for. And you know, where we are at, deer might not have the most mass, but that's okay. You know, a mature buck is a mature buck, and if you can shoot a mature, older than 3.5-year-old buck, older than 4.5-year-old buck, that's a trophy, because no matter the antler size, those things are hard to kill. They're tough, they're sneaky, they're resilient, they use their nose. I mean, all of that stuff plays a part in killing a mature buck. It's not just how big their antlers are. So, and on the flip side of that, you know, you could have a 2-year-old buck that's a nice 10-point, or even a 1-year-old buck that's a nice 10-point, maybe doesn't have a ton of mass, or as long of tines as it could have, but it's not as smart, so that might even be an easier kill than a nice big mature 5.5-year-old buck. So the other thing I wanted to mention really quick before we hop over onto my computer and look at some trail camera photos is that trail cameras can play a huge role in knowing the age of a buck, especially on bigger farms where, or less hunted properties where you can get consistent pictures year after year of the same looking bucks, and you know that they survived the winter, they survived gun season, and they're coming back for another year. So if you have multiple years of history with a buck, and then you can kind of piece together the antler mass, the body shape, the teeth, you're gonna have a pretty good estimate of the age of that buck. But just something to do if you still have, you know, years of trail camera pictures. I know we used to, and then the computer that we used completely died. I don't know why, but my dad had all of our trail camera pictures saved onto this it was this little blue computer, but anyway, it died, and so I don't have the years to go back and kind of backtrace that now. But alright, so now that we have kind of discussed the in-person examples that I wanted to show you, let's hop over onto my computer, and I want to kind of give you maybe 3 or 4 examples of bucks on trail camera picture and the kind of things that you want to look for in their body feature. Hey guys, now that we're on my computer, I wanted to show you guys some live examples of some deer that we have caught on trail camera and how we kind of age a buck based on its body features. And you can do this with trail camera pictures, you can do this in the field, or you can do it after the shot, all depending on your style of hunting. So right away, I noticed that this buck has this nice brisket right in this area that I boxed. It drips really low. That's one sign of a older, more mature buck. The other sign is you can tell over on this side that this buck is full. He's mature. He's got lots of body mass on him. He almost looks kind of like a cow in the body, and that's another sign of a big, mature buck. These antlers have decent mass in the main beams. He's obviously still in velvet, so they're still growing, and that means that he's definitely a mature buck. And so this is one example I want to show you where you get this front view of the brisket dropping down pretty low, and his body is really full. So that's what I want to show you guys with this picture. This is a buck that we also had on trail camera a couple different times. Never got to put him on the ground, but man, he's a nice looking buck. So let's talk a little bit about him. The first thing I noticed is this droop in his stomach right here. He's got a nice droop. That means that he's a mature buck. Younger bucks, I have a picture of a younger buck that I'll show you, and you can just kind of see the difference. The other thing is his legs do not look unproportional to his body, which means his legs don't look super long, like he's skinny and young and hasn't really fully matured his bone structure and his muscle mass. You can see this neck here, once again, is super full, super thick neck, and then over here on his hind end, you can see the definition in that hind end. Super defined muscle tone. His bones are fully developed, and that's also a good sign of a good mature buck. Now, something that some hunters might not look for is that tarsal gland right down here. The darker those tarsal glands get can often be a tell of how mature a buck is because of how many ruts and how many times they have stained those glands with scent, with their scent, and so it's also a good tell. So that's this buck. I wanted to show you guys. We don't get a good front view of the brisket. The antlers don't have a ton of mass, but that's pretty common for Michigan, so that doesn't surprise me. But the tines are good length, and he's got good inside spread, so that's also a good sign. So this is the buck that I kind of want to show you that was a little bit younger, and as you can tell, his antlers aren't as big. He's still a 7 point, it looks like. Yeah, he doesn't have a small little crab claw here, so he's still a 7 point. But as you can tell, these legs look way longer in comparison to the other bucks that I showed you. And there's no really droop in the stomach. His brisket doesn't really hang down, and his neck doesn't look too thick. It looks a little bit thick, but not too thick. If I had to age this buck, I'd probably put him at about 2.5 years old. These tarsal glands, not super dark, but altogether, still a really nice buck. My guess would be 2.5. Now I'm taking a real close look at him. So that's a younger buck. The other thing you can look at is this uh, his backbone. There's no real drop in it. There's a slight drop in it, but for the most part, it's pretty flat, just like his stomach, just flat across. And so those are some of the signs that I look for, especially in the younger bucks and in the mature bucks, is how much drop do they have in their stomachs and their backs and their brisket. So this gives you a good look at the legs. Actually, this is the one I want to show you. Do you see how long his legs are compared to his body? So that's a good tell that this is maybe a 1.5 to 2.5 year old buck. This one's got something cool that I didn't notice. It's got this double patched white patch there, and then it's got a slight white patch down there, which is kind of cool, but that doesn't have anything to do with age. That's genetics, I think. There's no brisket drop here. Stomach comes flat across, back flat across, antlers. Pretty good mass actually for a Michigan buck. Very nice buck. Probably 1.5 to 2.5 years old. Definitely one that if we can um, keep him alive, that would grow into a really nice buck. So those are the examples that I wanted to show you guys about how you're looking for stomach drops, brisket drops, uh, how far does the back kind of bend inward, how full is the neck, the leg length, the tarsal gland in the back, and then obviously we talked about the antler mass. And so that's really what I wanted to show you guys with trail cam pictures, how you can look at a buck and just kind of start to put the pieces of the puzzle together. And with that, that's all I had to show you guys on my computer. So thank you guys so much for watching this YouTube video. I hope that you guys learned something, reinforced something, and are ready to plan accordingly. Whether that's only shooting mature 3.5-year-olds or over into your hunting strategy or hunting plan. But that's what we like to preach here. We like to preach learn, plan, and then go and execute those plans and see the results. And if you need to tweak your plans accordingly, do that. Some other things that are going on here at the Whitetail Teacher. I just got these in the mail today. Hoodies with the logo printed on the front, and then we got hats, and then I also have t-shirts. If you have not yet, please go join our community. It's the Hunters of America Discord. You can find it at my blog or using the link down below. It's greatly appreciated. It's just a place, a very specific platform that is used to grow communities, and it's a great place to talk with other people, a great place to learn, a great place to collaborate with other hunters around the United States. And I'm looking to keep growing that and keep making an impact on the whitetail hunting world. And I know a lot of people like to hunt turkeys. People will try to pull bear tags or elk tags. So I've also created sections inside the Discord so that you can collaborate and talk with and learn from people that are experienced in that big game hunting world too. Because, you know, I'm here to teach you guys about whitetail deer, but I'm also here to provide a community. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and hit that bell notification, because we are going to keep coming with more YouTube videos, more, you know, tips for shooting your bow better, more tips for how to place trail cameras, all this stuff. I got ideas, and you're going to want to stay in tune, and you're going to want to stay in touch. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, leave them down in the comments, and I'll make sure to get to them as fast as I possibly can. With that being said, we'll see you guys next time.